Hi there. I haven't really seen other YouTube channels reporting on this yet, because everyone's exhausted in the wake of the finale, but leaked footage confirmed that Cregan Stark actually was going to be in the House of the Dragon Season 2 finale, but he was cut from the finally released version. They went far enough to actually film this, then they cut it. And the unfortunate implication of this is, with the reduced episode count from 10 to 8 episodes, they might no longer be able to fit him into Season 3. That the entire point of having him show up in the finale with the Stark army was to tease that we're going to give him more to do next season. By removing that, it's basically saying everything's on the bubble. If we don't get a 10-episode season again, we will not be able to fit Cregan Stark into it. And this is the Starks, one of the name recognition big names that people come to for this. Stark, Lannister, Targaryen. That's kind of the big brand names. Wow. That this is how bad everything is. It circulated around on Twitter, and no one's really sure where it originated. That it was not part of that leak from the Iceland distributor accidentally released everything a couple of days early. But that was footage from the actual episode. This is a behind-the-scenes footage. You can tell it's looking through the camera, there's a plus sign in it, and it's all blue screen. That it's of the Stark army arriving at the Frey's Bridge. But the river and the hills behind it, those are all blue screen. So it's... I asked around to major spy channels like Wake the Dragon, who broke the news about Rhaena and Sheepstealer, knows a lot of stuff. None of them know. The best guess is some crew member must have released it, but posted it to Instagram knowing fans would copy it, then deleted the original post. So, whatever the case, this fits in with other leaks we had heard throughout the season that Cregan is coming in the finale, all will be well, we don't need to worry. Now, the situation is, going over what happened over the course of the season, Cregan Stark is actually a pretty interesting character who has his own unique backstory. He's not just a Ned Stark clone. And you don't really get that from the TV version because he only had 5 minutes. This whole thing that, well, his uncle usurped him, he had to fight him to wrest control of the North back, that he married his childhood sweetheart, but she died in childbirth, that he has this bastard sister who also does stuff that just, his family, it's complicated. We got none of that. Because originally we thought, well, to tell all of that, Jace would need to be with him in the North for a couple episodes. And thinking on it, structurally it makes more sense to have Jace with Rhaenyra by the first episode, reacting to Luke's death and everything. I get that. And what we kind of thought they were doing, and it now seems they were doing, is they just wanted to spread out Cregan's content over more than one season. That they'd have him have a brief scene with Jace in the premiere, and then show up with his army in the finale to promise, okay, the Cregan stuff has been pushed around, recombined, but you're basically going to get it in Season 3. That instead of having a conversation with Jace in Winterfell, he'll have a conversation with him at the Twins. Or maybe not with Jace. Maybe it's because he's with the Riverlands army. Maybe he'll be chatting with Oscar Tully and talk about, well, yeah, my father died young too, and my uncle usurped me, and all this other stuff. Okay, you wanted to have it with Oscar Tully in Season 3. That makes sense. That part of adaptation is you need to figure out, I'm not against moving things around, I'm against cutting them entirely. So, while there was initial panic about this after the first episode, by mid-season we were getting solid leaks that, oh no, he's showing up with the Winter Wolves, with his advanced force that they're sending south. Because otherwise, in the book, Cregan just stays in the north raising the main Stark army, which takes months, that he only comes by the end of the story. That the whole point is they send this advanced force they call the Winter Wolves of graybeards, old grizzled veterans, old men who volunteer to fight in the first wave, men unafraid to fight and die. They're very effective. So okay, we'll have him come south with them. One other thing I need to dispel, because people keep bringing this up. The commander of the Winter Wolves in the book is Roderick Dustin, Lord Roderick Dustin. And they said, oh, well, they didn't want... I've actually seen more than one person saying in comment sections, well, they didn't want Cregan to take time away from Roderick Dustin. Dude, either they're going to have Cregan have screen time, or they're going to cut having distinct Northman characters altogether. You don't prioritize Roderick Dustin over Cregan. That's not to say they won't cast someone called Roderick Dustin. He just won't do that much. He'll be a glorified extra who speaks. But it's not that they wouldn't give screen time to Roddy the Ruin, Roderick Dustin, if they could give it to Cregan and already filmed it with Cregan. So that's the point here, that it seemed like, oh, okay, they're promising that they just pushed the Cregan stuff to season 3, and then it didn't happen. What is the obvious implication from this? Well, in the wake of the finale, we found out, you just looking at all the stuff and the episode counts, this was not a creative decision. The studio shot themselves in the foot. This is not the writer's fault. Warner Discovery is having giant cutbacks due to David Zaslav. Not just this show, but a lot of shows, like The Last of Us Season 2, all sorts of things. And on top of that, it is now clear that they ordered the House of the Dragon writers, you don't have 10 episodes, you have 8, after the point of no return. We're trying to narrow it down, but it was late enough in production, on the verge of filming, whether you say as filming was starting 1 month out, 2 months out. But filming started March, April, and by January, we thought they were ready to go. And the obvious thing here is at the last minute, on the scale of 2 months, well past the point of no return, they told them, make 8 episodes. They physically couldn't do that in such limited time. And everyone knew a writer's strike was going to come, and they couldn't even do rewrites, frantic live rewrites as they were filming. Also not possible. So they literally ended with episode 8 of 10. There really was no other option. I have other videos about that, but the implication of that they filmed Cregan and then took him out is that his character is on the bubble. That the whole point of having him in here was to promise that he'll be in season 3. And this means Ryan Condal, the writer, wanted to put Cregan in, wanted to put other characters in, had to push some of their content to season 3, was always going to push it towards the late season. And now he doesn't know if he'll be able to, so he can't make that promise. So you see what I'm saying here? I'm looking forward to the comments section. It's just, if they have an 8-episode season 3, Cregan will be cut. If they have a 10-episode season 3, Cregan will be restored. And the chances of that were low enough that Condal didn't feel he could promise that Cregan will come next season. He isn't sure if he'll have a 10-episode season again. This is awful. Well, the good news is it's easily reversible. Just say, if they get 10 episodes, Cregan will pop up again and just say, oh, well, he was off screen, or he was with the baggage train, or he rode ahead and was already treating with Lord Frey or something. The fact that he isn't physically on camera, you can just go, oh, I was off camera. This is easy to work around. But it is now clear that Ryan Condal is hedging his bets on whether certain characters can even appear in season 3 or not. And this was pretty late in the game. It's late enough that it's not just script, not just storyboard. You filmed this with the actor, but now you're not sure if you can fit it in because you're not sure if you'll get a 10-episode season. What's the takeaway from this? This fuels the argument. This gives ammo to the argument of, you fools, give House of the Dragon Season 3 10 episodes. If they have as few as 8, they're going to be cutting so many things they don't want to cut. This is not the fault of the writers. This proves the writers were trying. How can they do this with an 8-episode season again? Particularly because they're pushing this ending of Season 2 into it. And all sorts of other things that got cut. Like, I remember Westeros.org pointing this out. Like, Jane Arryn isn't even as big of a character as Cregan, but would it have killed you to have even a non-speaking female attendant standing next to her in certain scenes, who's meant to be Jess Redford, and just imply that, oh yeah, she's the one major gay character in this prequel era? That it wouldn't have taken any screen time, just have an extra person standing. It would have taken, like, as much time as they took for Oscar Tully, like a 5-minute scene. Cregan Stark's a bigger character, he'd have, like, a whole subplot and things, but those second-tier characters live on the margins, you see. That they're never going to cut Rhaenyra or Alicent, but an 8 to 10 episode season is the difference between, if we have 10 episodes, we can fit in Cregan, Jane Arryn, more for Daeron, other characters, And if you have an 8-episode season, it's going to focus on the characters they already have and cut all those other ones and make the world feel smaller. Think of the implications this has for the rest of the story and all the other characters who are similarly on the bubble. There is a chance, if we campaign for this, please spread this message that they removed the Cregan scene of him arriving with his army because they're no longer sure if he'll be in Season 3. They wanted him to be in Season 3, they planned for him to be in Season 3, but unless they have 10 episodes, I don't know. So they can't hide this. It already went out over the internet. News sites are already reporting on it. I don't know if an interviewer will be brave enough to ask, look, we saw footage that Cregan was at the Twins. What's going on here? What are the odds you're going to get a 10-episode season again to tell that story? So we can still have everything we wanted. The content we thought we missed from the beginning of Season 2 of him explaining his backstory, the plan was just to push that to Season 3. We need 10 episodes.